With a ship called Monterey, and home goes again with no ship and gin. It was sad when the Monterey went down. It was sad, oh sad, mighty sad, too bad. It was sad when the Monterey went down. To the bottom of the captain and crew knew exactly what to do. It was sad when the Monterey went down. Well done, Kevin.
Are there any questions?
Jim.
Would you review again the hypothesis of why the water came in?
Yes, what
The
color
boat's
is it?
heavier.
What?
The boat's heavier than the water.
Good, that's actually, wow, we know that.
What caused the leak?
What caused the leak?
Yes.
We don't know.
We don't know.
We don't
We
know.
could not find the source. It wasn't the stern gland. It was not the bow thruster. None of the through hulls.
Well, it might have been the bow thruster.
It might have been, but we do not know. One thing we do know, the boat is 4,000 meters down, and that's it. 12,000 feet. It's in 12,000 feet of water, 200 miles south.
We had various theories, and we found after the fact. I got a call from a fellow that I'd met in Scotland who said, "Welcome to the club." And he had a sistership of ours. And it turned out that back in, I think it was 2002, he had an earlier version, a Pilot House 60, that sank very suddenly. And so here he's calling me up. This is the Sunday after we got back, and that's the first I'd heard of his earlier sinking. So after he lost the 60, he bought a 56, which he still has, and he lives aboard in Thailand or someplace like that. But he thought that he hit something, and that had pierced the hull somehow or other. But he also did not feel a jarring of the boat. We didn't feel a jarring of the boat, which we would have expected to feel if you hit a container or something heavy. Another theory was that perhaps the boat had been stressed. There was an incident in a yard some years before where the rig was way over tension. That may have caused some creak and crack. I sort of find that hard to understand.
You say the rigging was too tense?
I'm sorry?
The rigging was too tense?
Yeah, he basically he had this theory that the rig should be set to a certain tension, and the net result was that we had to take 3 inches out of the backstay to put any tension on the backstay. So he basically just ground the whole thing in and cut the boat together. The builder of the boat expressed the view that he thought that the bow thruster housing may have failed, and that is sort of the thing that probably makes the most sense from the point of view of the volume of water that was coming in and the source of the water. It's very interesting how quickly the water came in, and once you've got 6 inches of water in the boat, it's pretty hard to figure out where it's coming from. And it never dawned on me that it would be coming from the bow. We were looking around in the engine room and all the various through hulls. It never dawned on me that it could be coming from the bow. But and if we identified it as coming from the bow, we could have dealt with it. We could have created a watertight bulkhead very easily. But we just don't know. And
The picture showed the bow.
yeah, the
down.
bow's always going to be down because there's a lot. The boat is broad in the stern, and all boats are going to go bow down because there's less flotation in the bow than there is in the stern.
Is it common for bow thrusters to cause a leak?
Never heard of.
Oh, okay, good.
I never heard of it from somebody else, and it's very hard to. The whole idea that there could be structural failure was really hard to stomach because we've been through a lot of heavy weather in that boat, and Robin Knox Johnson just bought a sister ship of ours last summer, and he had it in Greenland and came back from Greenland and was meeting with in a media room with a friend of mine Louis Habib, who did the media for the Antigua Bermuda race, and he's telling Louis about his trip to Greenland, and that he has this Far Pilothouse 56. And Louis said, well, I think that's the same boat that Les had, and sure enough, next thing you know, I'm getting this email from Robin. Pardon me, I don't mean to interrupt. The most polite, typically old school English email you could ever imagine. But might I inquire as to what happened? And anyway, we don't know that.
Well, because there'd be an electrical connection to the bow thruster.
No, you have to understand. It's well, yeah, no, that wouldn't be that. The bow thruster is on a worm gear, goes up and down. It's not a tube, but the worm gear is where the machinery is held in place. There's an aluminum plate on the top of this box, and the theory from and this is the guy that basically commissioned the original boats, and was the owner of the company originally, a fellow that I met in Turkey. His feeling was that the box that all this is in is just tapped into the fiberglass, and his thought was perhaps the bow thruster might have been deployed at some point, and something might have hit it and had a bit of leverage against it that could cause the top to pop open. Anyway, that was his view. So we don't know.
Any other
Insurance
comments?
companies must have statistics on fiberglass boat sinkings.
I'm sure they do. I mean, the whole insurance process was very interesting, but very straightforward. And the insurers took testimony from me and from all the various crew members, and it was interesting. They were satisfied with the report that was done, we had an investigator came down from the U.S. and interviewed us all, or interviewed me and James Wellington, and then by phone Bob and Kit, Cam, he had we came to agreement on a statement, basically a statement of events, I was surprised. I got an email back the next morning from the Lloyd's Syndicate saying, they're sorry to hear about what had happened, and what are your payment details? So basically, we were paid out the money. Yeah.
How long did it take for Monterey to sink? You discovered this at 4 a.m.?
Yeah, so it was 4 o'clock. You saw the boat at 7 o'clock. At 7:30, it gave off a yellow brick position. At 8:30, it did not. So we figured that probably brackets it, because the yellow brick is a watertight transmitter. It must have been sufficiently below the water that it couldn't transmit.
And what boat are you sailing now?
Other people's boats. No, we've got some good sailors since, yes.
I'm interested in the psychology of this for the 6 of you. Are there a significant number of events where you just have different perceptions of what occurred? Or do you all have a pretty consistent memory?
I guess, you're talking to each other and trying to piece it all together. Like, when we got on, the first thing we did when we got on the spree, or after we'd sort of settled down, I got out a pen and paper and tried to put a sort of a timeline on things. And it was only that when we got on the spree, that I'd heard that the watch before us had heard a bang, a loud bang, crack. It's so now we're on a spree. We're taking notes and just trying to figure out, basically trying to figure out what happened. And
When you say the watch before you heard a crack, do they have any idea what they had?
Kit and Cam were the watch before.
We were on watch, and I think we heard. I beg your pardon. But Cam, you heard the crack as well.
Yeah.
And I thought it was topside, and so I was looking, for a line that had broken or something that had broken on the deck. and I searched the entire deck, couldn't see anything.
Yeah, I went forward.
And below that, or
I
did
went
you?
forward on deck and I went forward below.
Below.
And I couldn't see anything. There was
Yeah.
no,
And I guess, then I convinced myself, that it was, maybe the jib that just cracked. But it was different. It was
Yeah.
very different.
You couldn't get something underneath.
No,
no,
it
it
was,
would have salted.
no, it
We're
was,
doing 8
it was
knots.
yeah.
You hit something, you
Yeah.
feel it.
Yeah. And there was no jolt, but you know, going back to the bow thruster theory, the bow thruster's enclosed by, there's a door that compartment, so that closes off that compartment. And so if something went askew there, you wouldn't have thought to look there. I mean, the whole thing is, who thought of a bow thruster door, you know?
Yeah.
And
Finding the direction of the sound is really hard to do. You know, where did that come from? Did it come from the head? Did it come from the side? Below?
Definitely.
Oh,
yes.
I'm just wondering, did your course not take you perilously close to the Sargasso Sea, where there's all kinds of junk?
Well, we're in the Sargasso Sea.
What?
You're on the edge of the Sargasso Sea there, actually.
We're on
Yes,
the-
you are. You're on the edge of the Sargasso Sea there. And there is junk there. There's no question there's junk there. And another boat that was in the race saw what he thinks was an old oil container, an old oil drum. It was floating, an oil container, I should say. It was floating at an odd angle out of the water at daylight, and he saw it and missed it. So if your question is, are there things out there to hit? Yeah, there are.
Yeah, because I came through the Sargasso Sea in a banana boat in 1938, and the sea was literally covered with junk from horizon to horizon, mostly batches of seaweed, old lifeboats. A boy from New York Harbor saying NY-17 that apparently was there for many years.
Well, maybe our Liferafters might be there. It was interesting, when we left the Liferaft, I was talking with the U.S. Coast Guard on this satellite phone, and I was saying, well, should we be piercing the Liferaft to sink it? And they said, well, is the name of the boat on the Liferaft? And I said, yes, it is. And they said, no, it's okay. And I regret we didn't sink it, because it just, you can imagine somebody sailing along, a year later, and they see a life raft, they're going to divert course and try to find out what's there, and could get themselves in trouble.
Are there any other comments or questions? Last one, Jim.
So it says here you're going to make Monterey 3. What happened to Monterey 1?
Well, Monterey 1, Monterey 1 was last seen in Maine somewhere. My son ran into the boat, I don't know, 8 years ago or so.
So it's still
No, ran into the owner of the
Sorry. Did you have one more?
No, I'd just like to once again express my appreciation to Les and Kit and Cam for making the trip to come here today.
And also to Rodney for his expert guitar. Thank you very much for that. And Bob, thank you for pulling all of this together. I think that what you demonstrated today, and of course on May 17th, 1917, in any event, you demonstrated such teamwork and such preparation. I know that there were some lessons to learn, but you could be a model for any course in university about teamwork and leadership. So I thank all of you. Thank you, Bob, for taking the lead in this, and thank you, Les, for taking the lead on Monterey.
Yeah, I just we put a lot of time and effort into a story about going through the whole mishap and the lessons learned in the voyages that Bob is showing there. And just send an email to Bob, and Bob will get, there's a PDF copy that you can read. And it's been picked up by several spots. I think there's some real things to learn in it.
Yes. It was in cruising, I think.
Maybe I can, if I get a copy, I'll do some printouts that can go on the table here, and I can also send them out to.
Sure.
Or they can go on the web. All right, let's do a big round of applause.
Here, here.
And a reminder for the tickets for the spring fall coming up, so you may have those on your table. And Marguerite, if you leave some information on the table outside, that would be good. And next week, we have Bill Bielkowski joining us for the third time. He remembered, if you recall, spoke to us about the broken wire where the plane landed on a aircraft carrier and went off the end and survived. Next week, he's going to talk to us about the many Canadian naval flyers since 1914. And then upcoming following that, we have Vicki Piercy, and she'll join us to share her experiences with freighters on the Great Lakes.
Yes.
She calls her presentation Trading Places, Musings and Uses of an Iconic Watery Highway. So basically she's talking about how that watery highway affects our everyday lives. So with that, I'm sent.
Thank you. So take care.